Washington Post reporter, hence why the reporter's home was looked into by the FBI, rightfully so. And the administration is not going to tolerate leaks, especially from within the national security apparatus of the United States government, that put our nation's integrity and our national security at risk. Full stop. The president will not support that. I know the Secretary of War will not support that, and it will not stand. And legal action will be taken against anyone, whether it's a member of the press or whether it's an employee for a federal agency who breaks the law. If you break the law and if you endanger our men and women in uniform, you are going to be held accountable, period, full stop.
But
Jackie.
Does this administration believe that this reporter or any reporter has a right to publish classified information under certain circumstances?
Look, I think that we do not believe that individuals who have been given the privilege of holding a top secret clearance should be illegally leaking that classified information, and I know the American people agree with that. And I think it's a basic tenet of journalistic integrity not to publish information that could directly endanger the operational security or the brave men and women who are serving this country in uniform and putting themselves in harm's way to protect not just the people of this administration, but all of you in the press and all of their fellow Americans as well. Jackie.
Thank you, Karoline. I wanted to get the White House reaction to Iranian state TV broadcasting an implicit threat to the president's life. It was images of the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, according to reports, with the message, "This time it will not go wrong."
I have not seen that, to be honest with you, Jackie. We'll take a look, and I'll let the president and his national security team examine that footage to ensure its legitimacy. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it. What I will say with respect to Iran is that the president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. And the president received a message, as he revealed to all of you and the whole world yesterday, that the killing and the executions will stop. And the president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted. And so the president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president.
Netanyahu encouraged him against strikes.
Look, it's true that President spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but I would never details about their conversation without giving the expressed approval by the president himself. Ouija.
Thank you, Caroline. Is it still the president's assessment that it would be very hard for Ms. Machado to leave Venezuela because he says she lacks the respect and support in that country? And will he raise that with her today?
I think the president's assessment that you just pointed out was based on realities on the ground. It was a realistic assessment based on what the president was reading and hearing from his advisors and national security team. And at this moment in time, his opinion on that matter has not changed.
He has also said that he would like there to be elections in Venezuela when the time is right.
That's right.
Do you have any update on when that might be? And is he committed to a transition to democracy for Venezuela?
Yes, and he is also committed to hopefully seeing elections in Venezuela one day, but I don't have an updated timetable for you today. Reagan in the back.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a question for you on Minnesota and then also Venezuela.
Sure.
President Trump threatened invoking the Insurrection Act today in a Truth Social post. I'm wondering what his tipping point is. Like, what would it take for him to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Look, that's only a question, frankly, Reagan, the president can answer. But the Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. As you know, it has been used sparingly, but it has been used by previous presidents in American history. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations. And if you talk to any law enforcement officer, no matter what level they work at, they want to be working with their counterparts, whether that's at the federal level or the federal authorities wanting to work with their counterparts at the state and local level. And it's truly shameful that now for more than a year, you've had elected Democrat governors and mayors who have basically held their state and local law enforcement hostage and told them, you cannot cooperate with federal law enforcement. Why? They cooperated under the Biden administration. It's because these Democrats are deranged in their hatred for President Trump, and they are holding their state and local law enforcement hostage as a result. And these Democrat mayors and governors are doing this over what? Over the lawful and legitimate law enforcement operations to remove violent criminals from the streets of Minnesota, from the streets of California, from the streets of New York, and from the streets of every state across this country. And you don't see these riots and this vandalism taking place in states like Florida. Why? Because you have a governor in that state who has empowered federal and local authorities to work together. And it's despicable what we're seeing from these Democrat politicians, especially in sanctuary states and cities across the country.
Yesterday, Caroline.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, thank you so much. My question is, President Trump has talked twice in recent days, once at the Kennedy Center and then to Reuters again last night about canceling the election. Why is he talking about this?
I believe you're referring to the president's interview at Reuters last night. I was in that interview. It was a closed-door interview. Obviously, there was not audio or video. The president was simply joking. He was saying, we're doing such a great job. We're doing everything the American people thought. Maybe we should just keep rolling. But he was speaking facetiously.
And then one more.
Sure.
On the labor secretary. She's under investigation. Has he spoken to her about this?
I don't know if the president has spoken directly to the secretary. If they have, I'm unfamiliar with that conversation, but I have spoken to the president about that report regarding the secretary. He's aware of the internal investigation, and he stands by the secretary, and he thinks that she's doing a tremendous job at the Department of Labor on behalf of American workers. PBS, go ahead.
You were mentioning a moment ago about working federal, state, local officials in Minneapolis. Governor Walz's office is saying today that he's trying to get a hold directly with the president. Have they spoken? And if they haven't, why haven't they spoken if there's a desire from Walz, as they're saying, to de-escalate what's happening there?
I'm not sure if that's a genuine offer to speak with the president. I was with the president about 30 minutes ago, and they hadn't spoken at that point. Look, the president is always willing to answer the phone when people pick up and call. When there was another tragic shooting many months ago in Governor Walz's state, he spoke directly with the governor. But I would ask that the governor stops inciting the harassment and illegal obstruction of law enforcement in his state. All ICE and federal law enforcement are trying to do are remove people like this off of the streets of Governor Walz's city in Minneapolis and of his state in Minnesota. If you look at some of the individuals in this photo, these are all illegal alien criminals who came into our country under the previous administration. This is some of the most disturbing crimes you will ever read about, and there's only a few reporters in this room who will actually talk about these individuals. This is all ICE is trying to do. They are trying to remove people like this from Governor Walz's state. And so yes, he should pick up the phone, and he should say that he will cooperate with this president and with the federal government in making Minnesota safer, because that's all President Trump and his administration want to do. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. The president says he wants money to go directly to Americans so they can buy their own insurance. How exactly would this work? And can the president assure Americans that this will be enough to cover their health care costs?
So this is the second principle in the president's health care plan, lowering insurance premiums specifically and ensuring that that money is going directly back to the American people and cutting the kickbacks that then raise those premiums. So this plan, once put into legislative text and passed by Congress and sent to the president's desk, will stop sending big insurance companies billions of an extra taxpayer-funded subsidy payments and instead send that money directly to eligible Americans to allow them to buy the health insurance of their choice through, you may have heard it be referred to as health savings accounts. Whether that ends up being the actual name of such accounts, we'll have to see. Again, Congress and the White House are going to work together to put this plan into action. And then secondly, the Great Healthcare Plan will fund a cost-sharing reduction program for healthcare plans, which will save taxpayers at least $36 billion and reduce the most common Obamacare plan premiums by over 10%, and that's according to the Congressional Budget Office.
But 20 million Americans in recent weeks have seen their health care costs soar. Can he assure them that if this plan is put in place, that they will be able to cover those costs?
If this plan is put in place, every single American who has health care in the United States will see lower costs as a result. They will see more transparency. all of these proposals that are within the Great Healthcare Plan are incredibly popular with the American people, and they will impact everyone, not just a small fraction of those who are within the healthcare marketplace, but every single American will continue to see their costs go down. And I will note that they already are with respect to prescription drug prices. When you look at what the president has done with most favored nations, you've seen these big pharmaceutical companies in the Oval Office saying that this president and his team were nonstop, around the clock, pressuring us and negotiating with us to lower the cost of prescription drugs for Americans. And we are already seeing that to the tune, in some cases, of more than 500%. And that Trump RX website is something that the administration will be formally launching very soon, so Americans will have access to those lower costs of drugs. Josh.
Thank you. The president has called on credit card companies to lower the cap rate to 10% effective the 20th next week. If they don't do that, what's his what'll he do? What's the threat?
Well, tariffs? No, I'm just kidding. The president certainly has an expectation, Josh, that the credit card companies will do this, just as he did with the pharmaceutical companies, that they will lower costs for American consumers. I don't have a specific consequence to outline for you, but certainly this is an expectation and, frankly, a demand that the president has made.
Can you give us an update on the Fed? Sorry. There was some reporting from, I think, Fox Business that Rick Reeder had an interview this week scheduled. The president's indicated he's already made a selection, or at least some kind of, he's settling on someone. Where is he in that process, and when can we expect an announcement? Is he still doing interviews?
Look, the president is in the same place as you all have been asking about this for many, many weeks. He's in a decision-making phase. There are a few people who he likes very much for this job, maybe less than that. The truth is, like with all decisions, it's a decision for the president to make. And he said to Reuters in that interview last night that he thinks he'll be finally making that decision in the next couple of weeks. So we will see.
And very quickly, there's been some criticism from other governments about Grok and XAI, the Twitter AI bot, and things it's been doing to manipulate images, including whether that would violate the Take It Down Act that the First Lady has supported. We've not heard from this administration on it. Elon Musk says that they've disabled that, but I wanted to ask you whether the administration has a position and whether that's something that you will be pursuing, or whether the president has talked to Mr. Musk about that.
Yes, I will talk to the Office of Science and Technology, and we will get you a firm statement and answer on exactly where the administration stands. I don't want to speak on that without speaking with the experts on it. Yes.
Just to follow up on the health care plan, one of the things in the Affordable Care Act was coverage of pre-existing conditions. Is there any discussion or inclusion on that issue in the president's plan?
The president's plan that he outlined today will have no impact on individuals in this country with pre-existing conditions. Obviously, that's a continued conversation that the White House will have with Congress, but that's not the president's intention with the Great Health Care Plan. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions on Minneapolis.
And then you. Go ahead.
Two questions on Minneapolis, one on the ICE agent, the other on the rioting. I believe last night there were protesters or rioters that rifled through an FBI car, took weapons. We had a reporter embedded with ICE who said that she saw constant harassment all evening. Can you speak to the rhetoric we're hearing from Democrat politicians, whether they are causing violence against ICE, as well as some of the headlines we've seen not including the full story?
Yeah, I mean, to your first point, I think I've addressed that these Democrat governors and mayors in not just Minnesota, but in states across the country are essentially, they've referred to ICE agents who, again, are brave men and women. And I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws at the direction of their bosses and again, at the direction of the law. They are simply trying to enforce the law. And the Democrat Party has demeaned these individuals. They've even referred to them as Nazis and as the Gestapo. And that is absolutely leading to the violence we're seeing in the streets. If you look at some of the images out of Minneapolis last night, look at this vehicle. Look at what it says. It says F ICE. You have these individuals who are putting their middle finger, proudly so, at the camera. Another ICE individual, a vehicle that was vandalized last night by these left-wing agitators. People don't do this without encouragement from people in power who make them feel like it's okay. Here's another one. And I'm pretty sure this car, you can't see it, said the best agent is a dead agent or something to that effect. This is despicable rhetoric that we're seeing. And the media is absolutely complicit in this violence, because if you look at the headline from CNN, protests erupt after federal agent shoots man in Minneapolis, that is not the story, that is not the truth. If you actually want to know the truth, you can look at what the Department of Homeland Security released, which is that this ICE agent was executing a targeted operation against a Venezuelan illegal alien who was unlawfully present in the country, who fled by car and then fled by foot. And when this ICE agent tried to detain the individual, 3 more of his comrades came rushing out of a house and started ambushing and attacking the ICE agent. They used a shovel or a broom to smash his face in. And so yes, that agent had to use self-defense and take up his weapon to protect his own life. That is what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis. That's what's happening on the streets, unfortunately, of these Democrat-run cities and states where you have elected officials who are encouraging such violence against our brave men and women in law enforcement.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. First, a follow-up on one of my colleagues who asked you about the president's interview with Reuters. You said that he was joking about canceling the elections, but Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation. And only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
Second,
Philip,
Caroline,
go
next
ahead.
question.
Thank you, Caroline. Senator Elizabeth Warren said that the president called her earlier this week to discuss caps on credit card interest rates. I'm curious, would the president work with her and other Democrats in Congress on a legislative fix to this issue?
I think the president would work in good faith with anyone in Congress for a good legislative fix that would benefit the American people. And that's precisely why he called Senator Warren earlier this week on that matter.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist. Kelly.
Caroline, 2 quick questions on Iran. I wanted to ask first, just if you can say, how close was the president to potentially launching strikes last night, and was it the Gulf states that convinced him not to do that, as some of the region there have said?
Well, look, Kelly, I know there's been a lot of speculation in the media about what the president is going to do at any given moment or any given night. And I would say a lot of these stories, to be honest with you, I've been reading them, and they've been based on anonymous sources who are pretending or guessing to know the president's thinking. The truth is, only President Trump knows what he's going to do, and a very, very small team of advisors are read into his thinking on that. And as I just told you, he continues to closely monitor the situation on the ground in Iran. And as we saw yesterday, he had heard that the killings and executions would stop. And we have seen 800 people, their lives have been spared as a result of that. The president continues to closely monitor, but also keep all of his options on the table.
Caroline, 2 separate questions.
Sure.
On the Machado meeting first, what is it that the president feels that he needs to hear from her or from the opposition party that he hadn't heard prior to today, or he wanted to hear in the meeting, to be able to convince him to commit to some sort of a timeline for elections?
I'm not sure the president is going into such the meeting with expectations like you just laid out, Fran. I don't think he needs to hear anything from Ms. Machado. I think generally this is a meeting that the president was willing to take and willing to accept to meet Ms. Machado in person and to just have a frank and positive discussion about what's taking place in Venezuela. That's all.
And on the subject of Greenland, Jeff Landry, the president's special envoy for Greenland, wasn't in the White House meeting yesterday. Can you say why that was and what exactly the role he is playing in these conversations about acquiring Greenland?
Well, the Vice President and the Secretary of State were present for that meeting, and the meeting, it was a productive meeting. It was a good meeting, and in that meeting, the two sides agreed to really establish a working group of individuals who will continue to have technical talks on the acquisition of Greenland. Those talks will take place, I'm told, every 2 to 3 weeks, so this is a conversation the administration intends to keep having with the Danes and with the respected delegation from Greenland. But the president has made his priority quite clear. He wants the United States to acquire Greenland. He thinks it's in our best national security to do that.
There have been multiple instances of American citizens being detained by ICE, and I'm wondering what the administration is asking the agency to do, or what steps is the administration asking the agency to take to ensure that Americans are not wrongly arrested?
Obviously, ICE is focused on detaining individuals who are unlawfully present in the country. And there have been hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens who have been arrested and detained and deported from this country by ICE over the course of the last year. And that's their intention, and that is their goal. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Caroline. One follow-up on Greenland. You reportedly sent troops over there. Does that change at all what the president is doing on this? And then a second question. Yesterday, in a Senate help hearing, Senator Josh Hawley repeatedly asked a doctor if men can get pregnant, and she did not directly answer that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to your first question on Greenland, I don't think troops in Europe impact the president's decision-making process, nor does it impact his goal of the acquisition of Greenland at all. To your second question, I mean, anyone in their right mind with common sense who's speaking honestly and candidly will say that men cannot get pregnant. And I think I can attest to that myself. So thank you all very much.